simply watches what people bring into the world and responds to it. That force is the marketplace. And once someone understands how it works, a lot of the confusion surrounding success and failure starts to disappear. Many people spend years trying to figure out why some people seem to steadily move ahead while others struggle just to gain momentum. They often assume the answer must involve luck, secret advantages, or circumstance they can't control. But when you really look at how opportunities are distributed in the world, you start to see a consistent pattern appear. The marketplace does not respond to wishes, and it does not reward the stories people tell about themselves. It responds to value. In many ways, the marketplace works a lot like a mirror. A mirror does not invent information, and it does not change the image in order to protect someone's feelings. It simply shows what is standing in front of it. If you stand in front of a mirror smiling, the mirror reflects that smile immediately. If you stand there frowning, the mirror shows that frown just as clearly. The mirror is not judging you, and it is not choosing sides. It is simply showing what is there. The marketplace behaves in the same neutral way. It reflects what a person contributes, the problems they are able to solve, and how useful their abilities are to other people. When someone develops skills that help others move forward, the reflection begins to change. Opportunities appear, demand increases, and rewards begin to grow. When the contribution is small or inconsistent, the reflection shows that as well. What makes this idea so important is that many people misunderstand the measurement being used. They believe the world evaluates them based on how hard they try, how difficult their situation has been, or how strong their intentions are. Those things may matter to the person experiencing them, but they are not the measurement used by the marketplace. The marketplace measures usefulness. That realization can feel uncomfortable at first because it removes many of the explanations people rely on. Someone might feel they have worked extremely hard for years and still feel frustrated with the results they are getting. Hard work by itself, however, does not guarantee that the work is producing something others actually need. The marketplace does not measure how exhausted someone becomes while working. It measures the usefulness of what that work creates. Imagine two people both working long hours every day. One spends that time learning how to solve difficult problems that businesses face, improving systems, and developing skills that make other people's work easier and more productive. The other person spends the same number of hours staying busy but producing very little that actually helps anyone move forward. At the end of the day, both people may feel equally tired, but the marketplace will reflect their contributions in very different ways. This is why the marketplace should not be seen as an enemy or as some kind of harsh judge. In reality, it is one of the most honest systems a person will ever deal with. It does not operate on favoritism, and it does not secretly decide who deserves success. It simply reflects the value that flows from one person to others. Over time, that reflection becomes harder and harder to ignore. A person who consistently produces useful results begins to attract attention because others benefit from what they do. Employers notice it, customers notice it, and coworkers begin to rely on it. Opportunities start to appear, not because someone demanded them, but because the value being produced makes those opportunities make sense. The same pattern works the other way as well. If someone contributes very little that helps others solve problems or improve their situation, the reflection will quietly show that too. The world may still offer basic participation, but the rewards will remain limited because the contribution remains limited. Once a person understands this principle, the way they interpret the world begins to change. Instead of seeing success as mysterious or unfair, the pattern becomes easier to recognize. People who consistently create value tend to move forward over time. People who rarely build or apply useful skills tend to stay close to where they started. The important thing to understand is that the marketplace itself is not emotional about any of this. It is not trying to punish anyone, and it is not trying to protect anyone. It simply reflects what is being offered. In that sense, the marketplace becomes one of the clearest forms of feedback a person can receive. If someone looks into that mirror and does not like what they see, the mirror itself is not the problem. The mirror is simply showing the current condition of what is standing in front of it. Once a person understands that idea, they gain the ability to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally. A lot of people spend years arguing with the mirror instead of improving what the mirror reflects. They complain about the system, criticize the environment, or explain why the results they are getting are unfair. None of those arguments change the reflection, however. The mirror continues to show exactly what is placed in front of it. A much wiser approach is to study the reflection carefully and treat it as useful information. If the reflection shows strong demand, increasing opportunity, and growing rewards, that means value is being created in a way that helps others. If the reflection shows stagnation or limited opportunity, that information is still useful because it points to areas where improvement may be needed. When someone begins looking at the marketplace in this way, something interesting starts to happen. Frustration slowly gives way to clarity. Instead of constantly wondering why life feels confusing, they begin to recognize the patterns behind the outcomes they experience. The marketplace starts to feel far less mysterious and much more predictable. It reflects usefulness, contribution, and reliability. Over time, those qualities form a pattern that other people can recognize and depend on. Once that understanding sinks in, a person stops treating the marketplace like something they need to fight against. Instead, it becomes a system that can be studied and worked with intelligently. By increasing the value they bring to others, they gradually begin to change the reflection they see. That is the key idea to remember. The marketplace is not creating your story. It is reflecting your contribution. What you see in that reflection is simply the world responding to the value you are currently offering. And once that principle is clear, it leads us to one of the biggest misunderstandings people have about success. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about success comes from mixing up what they intend to do with what they actually provide to the world. A lot of people believe that if they strongly want something, the results should naturally follow. They tell themselves things like, I really want to succeed, or I honestly want to improve my situation. But wanting something and delivering something valuable to other people are two completely different things. Intention exists inside a person's mind. It is private, personal, and usually invisible to everyone else. Value, on the other hand, has to move outward. It has to reach other people in a form that helps them solve problems, improve their situation, or accomplish something they would struggle to do on their own. The marketplace cannot respond to intention because it cannot see it. What it can respond to is usefulness, because usefulness directly affects other people. This difference explains why many hardworking people sometimes feel confused about the progress they are making. They might spend a lot of time thinking about their goals, talking about their plans, and trying to motivate themselves to move forward. Those activities can feel productive, and in certain ways, they do help a person stay focused. However, the marketplace does not measure how strongly someone wants success. What it measures is what that person actually produces that helps others. Someone might truly want financial stability, yet if they never develop skills that solve real problems for other people, the marketplace has very little reason to increase their income. The desire may be sincere and genuine, but sincerity alone does not create something useful that others can apply. The marketplace waits for something tangible, something practical, something that improves the work or lives of other people. This idea explains why recognition tends to follow contribution instead of coming before it. Many people hope to be noticed, respected, or appreciated for their effort. They want others to see their potential or acknowledge the work they feel they are putting in. But recognition rarely grows from intention by itself. Recognition grows from visible contribution. When someone consistently produces results that help others, people naturally begin to notice. The benefits of that work reach them directly, and that makes the contribution easier to recognize. A person who solves problems efficiently, improves processes, or provides dependable service begins to stand out without needing to demand attention. Others talk about them because their work produces real outcomes that people can actually see. It is important to understand that this does not mean intention has no value at all. Intention often serves as the starting point for improvement. Before someone begins changing their situation, they usually have to decide that they want something better. That decision can provide the motivation needed to begin learning and growing. But intention is only the beginning. It is not what the world ultimately measures. You can think of intention as the spark that starts an engine. The spark provides the energy needed to get things moving in the first place. However, once the engine is running, progress depends on movement, direction, and useful work being done along the way. If the engine never moves the vehicle forward, that original spark eventually stops mattering. The marketplace responds to movement and results. It responds to what actually reaches other people and improves their situation. When someone develops a useful ability and applies it consistently, the marketplace recognizes that immediately because it creates real benefits that others can experience. This is why two people with very similar ambitions can end up with very different outcomes. Both might talk about wanting success, and both may feel confident about their plans for the future. But if one person spends their time developing valuable skills, while the other focuses mostly on motivation and intention, the reflection they receive from the marketplace will slowly start to separate. The person who learns how to solve problems others face becomes more useful over time. That usefulness naturally leads to opportunities because people tend to seek out people who can deliver reliable solutions. Employers give more responsibility to those who produce dependable results, and customers return to people who provide services that genuinely improve their situation. Meanwhile, the person who depends mostly on desire and motivation may feel stuck or frustrated. They may believe their intentions are strong and their effort is sincere, yet the rewards they expected never seem to appear. The issue is not that the marketplace is ignoring them. The issue is that the marketplace is still waiting for value to show up in a form it can respond to. Understanding the difference between intention and value can completely change the way someone approaches improvement. Instead of focusing mainly on how much they want something, they start asking a different question. They begin asking themselves, what useful ability can I develop that will help other people move forward? That question naturally shifts attention toward growth. It encourages learning, practice, and the development of real competence. When someone focuses on becoming useful, instead of simply wishing for results, their actions start producing signals the marketplace can recognize. Those signals usually show up in the form of reliability, effectiveness, and problem-solving ability. A person who consistently delivers those qualities becomes valuable in ways that intention alone could never accomplish. Their work begins to matter to others because it produces outcomes that actually improve real situations. Another important thing to remember is that the marketplace does not require perfection. It does not expect someone to become the greatest expert in the world before they begin receiving rewards. What it requires is usefulness that people can recognize and depend on. Even moderate improvements in value can begin to change the reflection a person receives. Over time, small improvements in skill and usefulness start to build on each other. Someone who steadily increases their ability to help others eventually becomes hard to ignore because their contribution produces consistent results. Opportunities begin appearing simply because people trust the reliability of what that person provides. When someone truly understands this idea, a lot of their frustration begins to fade. They stop expecting the world to respond to what they intend and start focusing on what they actually deliver. That shift turns ambition into action and gradually transforms desire into contribution. The marketplace cannot respond to thoughts that stay inside someone's mind. It cannot reward intentions that never reach the outside world. But it does respond quickly when value appears in a form that benefits other people. Once a person understands that difference, they begin directing their energy toward becoming someone who provides solutions instead of someone who simply hopes for results. That change in focus is often the moment when real progress finally begins to take shape. And as that progress begins, it naturally brings a person face to face with another important realization. Every system in the world operates through a kind of language. Farmers understand the language of seasons, soil conditions, and planting cycles. Builders understand the language of measurements, materials, and structural balance. Merchants understand the language of trade, supply, and exchange. The marketplace has its own language as well. And once someone begins to understand it, the patterns behind opportunity become much easier to recognize. The marketplace does not communicate through explanations, and it does not respond to long arguments about why things should have gone differently. Instead, it communicates through results. The signals it pays attention to are value, reliability, and the ability to solve problems for other people. When those signals show up clearly and consistently, the marketplace tends to respond in ways that are surprisingly predictable. A lot of people spend years speaking in ways the marketplace does not really recognize. They explain why their circumstances are difficult, why certain opportunities never appeared, or why progress seems slower than it should be. Some of those explanations may even be true. However, those are not the signals the marketplace responds to. The marketplace is not listening for reasons. It is watching for results. Think about it. If someone finds a way to improve efficiency inside a company, the marketplace understands that signal immediately. If a person creates a product that saves people time or effort, the usefulness of that contribution becomes clear very quickly. If someone provides dependable service that others can rely on again and again, the marketplace responds because reliability itself becomes something valuable. All of these signals form a kind of language, and it is spoken through action rather than through words. Skills communicate in this language. Discipline communicates in this language. Consistent performance communicates in this language as well. When those qualities appear together, they send a message that other people can recognize and trust. One of the most important parts of this language is reliability. Someone who produces useful results occasionally may receive occasional opportunities. But a person who produces those results consistently begins to stand out in a much stronger way. Consistency turns usefulness into trust, and trust is one of the most valuable signals the marketplace recognizes. Think about what happens when someone repeatedly helps solve problems for the people around them. In the beginning, their contribution might not attract much attention because the results seem small or routine. Over time, however, patterns begin to develop. Coworkers start noticing that certain challenges become easier to handle when that person is involved. Managers start noticing that projects move along more smoothly when that person contributes their skills. Eventually, a reputation for reliability begins to form. People start seeking out that person when problems arise because past experience has shown that useful results tend to follow. When that pattern becomes clear, the marketplace begins responding with greater opportunity. Another important part of the marketplace's language is improvement. When someone continues developing their abilities, they send a signal that their contribution is expanding. Each new skill increases the number of problems they can solve. Each improvement in discipline increases the consistency of the results they produce. As someone steadily improves in this way, the marketplace starts recognizing a growing level of value. Employers may begin offering greater responsibility because they trust that person to handle more complicated challenges. Customers may become more loyal because the service they receive continues improving over time. One interesting thing about this language is that it does not require announcements or self-promotion. A person does not need to stand in front of others and declare how capable or reliable they are. The language speaks through repeated action. Results become the words that communicate value. This helps explain why some people seem to attract opportunity more easily than others. It is not necessarily because they have some mysterious advantage that others lack. Often it is simply because they have learned to communicate in the language the marketplace understands. Their actions consistently demonstrate usefulness, reliability, and competence. When those signals become clear, people begin to trust the results that follow. Trust naturally leads to greater responsibility, and greater responsibility often leads to greater rewards. The process may seem gradual at first, but over time it creates a very strong upward pattern. Here's something to remember. The marketplace does not become confused by excuses. When someone explains why something could not be finished or why a certain result did not appear, the marketplace continues paying attention to the outcome itself. Explanations may offer context, but they do not change the signal being sent. That does not mean a person should never explain a difficulty or mistake. Everyone faces challenges and setbacks at times. What matters more is the response that follows. When someone learns from a setback and comes back with stronger results, the marketplace recognizes that signal clearly. People who succeed over the long term often develop the habit of translating situations into the language of value. When they encounter a problem, they ask how they can solve it. When they see an inefficient system, they look for ways to improve it. When they have the chance to learn a new skill, they recognize that skill as another word added to their vocabulary of usefulness. Over time, their ability to communicate through results becomes stronger and more natural. They are able to handle more complex tasks because they have built the skills needed to produce dependable outcomes. Their reliability grows because they have developed the discipline required to maintain consistent performance. At that point, the marketplace often begins responding almost automatically. Opportunities appear because others recognize the signals being sent. Businesses look for people who can produce dependable results. Customers seek out people whose work consistently solves their problems. When someone clearly understands this principle, they stop arguing with the marketplace and start studying how it works. They begin paying attention to the types of contributions that receive the strongest response and then deliberately work to strengthen those abilities. The goal is not to impress others with promises or explanations. The goal is to communicate through action in a language the marketplace understands perfectly. Value, reliability, and results form that language. And the more clearly a person speaks through those signals, the more clearly the marketplace tends to respond. And that realization brings us to another interesting point about how people think about themselves. A lot of people spend a large part of their lives trying to decide who they are by choosing the right description for themselves. They attach their identity to titles, labels, or carefully crafted stories about who they believe they are. Someone might say, "This is who I am," and hope that others will accept that description exactly the way it has been presented. However, the world usually forms its understanding of a person in a very different way. The marketplace does not build a person's identity based on what they call themselves. It builds identity based on what a person consistently contributes. The question it answers is not what someone claims to be, but what that person repeatedly delivers to other people. Over time, the work a person produces becomes the clearest statement of who they are in the eyes of the world. This process does not happen all at once. It happens gradually and often quietly, but it is extremely powerful. Each time someone provides a useful result, a small impression is created in the minds of the people who benefit from it. When those useful results continue appearing over time, those impressions begin connecting with one another. Eventually, they form a pattern, and that pattern becomes reputation. Reputation is one of the most valuable forms of identity a person can develop. It is not created through declarations or announcements. Instead, it is created through experience. When people repeatedly see the same level of reliability, the same quality of work, and the same willingness to solve problems, they begin to associate those qualities with the person responsible for those results. Once that association starts to form, something interesting begins to happen. A person's name itself begins to carry meaning. When their name comes up in conversation, people start remembering the experiences they have had with that individual's work. If those experiences have been consistently positive, the reputation becomes stronger each time another useful result appears. This is how identity develops within the marketplace. It is built from repeated proof rather than personal opinion. Someone who consistently solves difficult problems begins to be known as a person capable of handling responsibility. Someone who consistently produces dependable results begins to be known as someone who can be trusted. Trust does not appear automatically, and it cannot be demanded from others. It grows through repeated evidence that a person's work produces reliable outcomes. Each time someone fulfills a promise, completes a task carefully, or improves something that others depend on, another layer of that trust begins to build. Over time, the pattern becomes difficult for others to ignore. People begin to seek out the person whose work has repeatedly proven dependable. Managers start giving more responsibility to those whose contributions consistently strengthen the organization. Customers return to the people who have shown that their service can be relied upon. In this way, identity becomes something built through action rather than something announced through words. The marketplace does not rely